As you can imagine, I pay a lot of tax. So I got this notice in the mail and just decided to come down. I recognized Roger Curry. We've known each other for a long time. Uh, Sometimes community participation is a good thing. So I had some time today between business appointments and decided to come by and saw that the meeting was at noon. Um, Having been on other boards and right now I'm working on a water board, but obviously funding is a huge issue. So immediately when I read your flyer, the thing that came to mind was how the districts are set up and why it is that the fire department draws no funding from the town. And I understand there are legal issues involved. But originally in other municipalities, when I've been involved in setting up districts, water districts and other things, in addition to grants and property tax and, fees from the residents, other municipal fees are delegated toward supporting those districts. So I was just interested in the exclusivity of the fire department. Why is it that there's no possibility to participate in the TOT revenue? That's my main question and concern, because I see that as a huge source of income. And I don't always approve of the way the TOT is spent. I think it should be spent to benefit town services completely, because as residents, we're the ones that just are stuck with things after all the tourists leave. So there should be some benefit from TOT to the fire protection district, I think. But I don't know what the legal setup was with that initially. But just historically, I was the first director of the Fire Safe Council years ago. And we applied for grants and got that program started. And I think that was in 2003, 2004, possibly. But that was my involvement. That's the only involvement. I did know Tom Heller. And so this is just renewed involvement because I just happen to be in the area today. But obviously, it's concern if we're going to attach another assessment to our property taxes, we'd like to participate and see. And I understand this other gentleman was concerned with an exemption for older people. It may not look like it, but I'm about to turn 69. So I'd be interested in that exemption, but don't expect a free ride for being old. Okay. Roger. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we're to kind of pulling the minutes who are legal here. Technically, we will be covering this item in 8A. I don't know how much we have to cover it just for public comments. I'll let Jen answer. The best place to respond is obviously want to respond back to your questions.
I mean, the public comment, they're it might be better to wait when we get there. We've got all questions and comments. So let's just go with that. Say the other panels are there. Maybe burdens, etc. Let's put that in a or response. Having that and we can do all that. I don't know if you're referring to item 8 on the agenda, which is also our page in the packet. Yeah. When we'll discuss in the business, which is where move forward to this. Right. Yeah. But public comment. Consent agenda, there's one point. Budget.
So I'm gonna do a very quick review of the budget today, as well as where we are in the final budgeting process. Just because we're getting rolling with one more year at this point. So you look forward to page 8, the beginning of our budget date. I did include our preliminary budget, and pages 11 through 13. You're very aware of this, but it's for the members of the public that are here. Our final budget will be due in October, so then we will start to look at the line items. The current preliminary budget is just last year's budget, with the 88 projection increase of the 400,000. That has not been allocated yet to the category, so, right now, we're just looking at essentially last year's budget. Couple things that I would note is, now that we've closed out the fiscal year, staff is working through the process of understanding payroll costs using a program called GovTest. We take all of last year's costs and we can run some assessments of what that will do. People were able to make some changes to our staffing. So that's going to take a couple more weeks here. And the goal is to start to get a couple versions of the budget in front of you in August and September. That will be a board feedback. If it's September, I have a good idea of how we want the final budget to look. In October, is when it's officially adopted, and hopefully by September, we have a good idea of what it's going to be a technical part. Looking through the budget as it currently sits, again, we have 1 out of our 13 payrolls, so not much there, but note a couple items significance. We do a couple things out of district to try to keep some of our costs down, so we make a lump sum on our first liability at the beginning of the year that increases our overall cost by about 3.5%, so we did that again this year. A couple of larger items, our insurance liability is again significant at the 3-year contract with the JPA. As all of you are aware, our insurance costs have gone up 400% over the last few years, which I think is reflective of a lot of residential costs, primarily due to wildland risks. So we have to bear those costs that everyone else had, and we budget items to be about $40,000, but the rest of it is cheap. So those were the larger ticket items. A couple of them, we obviously paid off our, take a look, first quarter of workman's comp. That item's going to be a little higher, mostly because starting with that wildland program with the board direction, that increased our overall hours that we're trying to get done, and that brings up the lowest comp. So overall, everything's fairly in line with where we expected. With the goal that next meeting in August, we're going to start flushing out some of those changes that we year over year. We'll give the board August and September as an opportunity to dial that in and bring that to state. Again, with the goal that this next year's budget is really reflective of where the board believes things should be. We'll discuss what we need to bring away in capital expenditures, discuss what the board would like to see on the long run program, and how to mitigate the issues we have with the federal resources now being in place to protect our community. So again, under board direction, I'll be a budget that's in the red. If we have to take that budget then, bring it back to neutral, we'll be doing that moving forward after the program. Yeah. Any questions on the budget?
Are you gonna go through page 11 as well? Well, in budget.
So I do not have page 11. This is the same one that the board adopted in June. I just had it here for reference because the current budget is not being quickest yet. So I just had to look over and see what that line item is budgeted for, how it was sitting where you're at. This is essentially last year's budget. We only changed the ADA projection because the county projections for what is actually going to be over the next year. So it's really just a snapshot of our prediction about this in the past.
I mean, I bring it up for people from the public who may be here, and then maybe wait till item 8, some questions from the budget day, report from that.
Absolutely.
Whole business for a potential out maybe if it's
I think we'll cover most of this, in DEA when we get to the discussion, about like prospective development, but, we've had a committee that continues to meet with, their consultants. I'm sure they've all seen the mailers coming through, the newspaper ads, we all, had a lot of input, into that was, a really interesting and I think really helpful process for us to understand. So yeah, just really looking forward to the discussion today and under number 8, which we have that feeling to add.
Yeah, I would just add that when you're going to be at a transition point, one way or another, depending on which direction the board decides to move forward. My role is purely for education. If you reach out to groups on the front end to express what a deep district is considering at this point. There were a couple items. We received a request from Bob Gardner of the Board of Supervisors to provide them with a presentation. Fortunately, that not occurred until August. So assuming that the board still decides to move forward with this, I will still build the board, being very careful not to advocate and explain the district's current condition as far as where it is financially, what it do to the current risks to the community and also. There is that. There are 2 other items that are already scheduled. One is the Chamber of Commerce. The other one is buy-ins. There are opportunities, especially for board members are allowed to advocate for things. I speak on those. She'll have to support.
That was one of the questions I had in the was how much conversation do we have around that as to individual level, but having sort of people together. Someone that comes into my office, for example, and goes out into the weeds of the way from homeowners insurance to the fire district and back. Which conversation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll go into it. I think very good. Maybe regard to the chief, but I haven't put that in
And one of the things we did want to do is potentially take a little bit of time to go over this general contact meetings with the boards and kind of write the current things that we consider. So potentially in August or September, we didn't know what was happening. Council would more to have at least see it as a
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm happy to do a ground presentation. We can do it in our next board meeting or the next board meeting, or if you want to hold like a special meeting, we can do that. We can do it. We do not let because other actions for the out for meeting on. Hopefully, we try to just play that all stuff. I should stop the all. Yeah. 30 minutes. Yeah, everyone was in.
I would just add to you that Chief Meyer has a really great presentation that's really focused on education, just letting the community know that there's a lot of people in the community don't really understand what the district does and does not offer to our residents. So I think that you might need to make some very minor tweaks to that, but I think for the most part, it's really trying to advocacy is really more education, but that's going to be all hard on, assuming, if we should move forward today, we'll all need to be right there. And then be on and
All right. More number 7 now. Number 8. Chief Color, is it okay to, since there is public comment, we start with public comment, do it, or we want to talk through it?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe if I can provide just a general overview of how many the public conference speak on it is going to back to comments because there are some important elements there in addition to discuss senior executive organization. So this resolution is actually again originally is based off the resolution of the district that originally previous time the district had considered the measure for the ballot. So most of it is essentially built off that framework on how we work to make sure that board intent based off especially that is reflected in this resolution. So that the question as it was written is provided, and then all the measures that are necessary to make that the reality. The administrative piece are also protected for. So I will defer a lot to legal on this. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is capture the board's intent, put that in the way so that it's reflected and people that this way possible. As an example, there's a question on low income and senior citizens. The intent of the board as understood it, is that there are exemptions for low income and senior citizens, so written in a way that we can work with the ministry that in the district. I'm not going to go too much into why the board is considering moving forward on this time. Which is fix those about. And I also want to, it looks like we have some numbers in the public online, Jeff, so we can take that down. We'll start with people in the room, and then people the ones online. So if you can speak on this comment, please again come up to the pedestal, state your name and
Before we move on to public comment, we are allowed to interact with the meeting. Each person is here to comment. Brian already spoke for 3 minutes and 30 seconds, so I'd say that would be a minimum. We should set that kind of.
So let's, I would recommend we allow 3 to 5 minutes to.
We'll take 5 minutes.
5 minutes back. Okay, let's get that. Okay. Right.
David Smith, long time resident. My question is with the term you use low income. And I read in the information you gave me that that's going to be determined by HUD. Well, push that aside a bit. I'd like to ask you, what is your concept of low income seniors? Do we have a price figure that you've discussed? 20,000, 30,000 a year? Where is that cutoff? That's what I'd like to know with this. Do we?
Right, so there's actually, the exemption for seniors is 65 years and older, you don't have to be low income. So if you're over 65, you can exempt, you have to fill out an application, which we'll be able to provide, if it gets passed, we'll have an application where the fire department should be online, just fill that out, and so if you qualify, that will get sent over and be exempted.
Now, thank you, but you use the term qualify. So if I meet the age limit, as
Qualify.
I qualify, all I have to do is fill that out.
Oh, okay, I should be more clear. You also, you would have to be, it would be a residential property.
Yes.
Within the district.
Yes,
65, and it's a residential property in the district.
and I can get that application with the fire department
Yes.
through their webpage if it goes through whatever. That was my concern with the terminology. I don't, you mentioned that you took everything from the last time. I don't have all the notes from last time, but I don't remember the term low income in there.
So correct, there have been some changes since the last one, since we're speaking on the exemptions, on the way that it is currently written, we believe it's board, again, board has to make a decision on this. But as we are providing essentially 2 provisions. One is for anyone who's 65 and over, but we'll put the asterisks out there that we have an administrator who used to be a bouncer and she'll check your ID. Just kidding about that. But anyone over 65 is exempt.
All right.
And separate from that, your low income under the HUD requirements, you can be exempt as well. Now,
Oh, okay.
Anyone that fits both those categories is also exempt, obviously.
I would recommend it, any more information, as you were saying, let's help educate the public. That be really, just as you just said, now I see it. Oh, okay. Just the way you explained it to me. You can do it this way and you can do it this way, but the 2 don't really have. Now, the other one's just a general question I have. is this tax, partial tax? And, because I've never got an answer to it, not from you folks, but is this going to apply to all the condominiums in this town?
Correct, so this would be a tax on any parcel, which includes condominiums. And
But if a parcel, maybe I'm getting too far into it, but that's me. Okay, you have a condominium, but it happens to have 3 stories to it, but it's on one parcel. Are you going to tax each one of those?
Great question, David. I think the intent is that not the homeowners association, a $198, but each person's title, or if the unit has a particular title that people, but just that one address, that one unit would be private.
So I think that's a huge money source that you're going to do that. Is that in that estimate that's in the flyer and newspaper of the $900,000 plus? Is that all that is? Okay, I feel better about that. Thank you very much.
And just roughly, there are approximately 10,000 that would be referred to as parcels in the community. Some of those, we live in Snow Creek Phase 1, there's 40 individual parcels within that. Snow Creek Phase 1, a single family residence would be its own parcel. About 10,000 of those.
Yeah, but I started to think about, well, what if they're stacked?
Yeah.
But you answered that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Or I'm not sure if now maybe it's time to address the pushing at the very different as far as exclusivity while cable TV. So you raised some very good points, your points that have brought to the district.
Let me approach and make one comment. So, not having participated, Brian Gizzo again, but not having participated in anything previously, just if you've already covered something, just tell me and, I'll do some homework on it. But my impression would be if there's an assessor's parcel number attached to the asset, then they're responsible to pay the tax, correct? Is that the way this works? Okay.
It'll actually be, it'll go through the assessment office. They'll handle it.
Yeah, so I won't see this. I pay tax on other assets in Mono County. So if there is no APN attached to it, then I'm not going to be paying an additional assessment on those assets for the fire department.
You're right, yes. I mean, if it's a parcel,
If this is just delegated to parcel ownership. Okay.
that's my understanding.
Yes and no, because as you mentioned, Brian, when you look at nine, so you could exempt yourself on one or more.
I think my social responsibility level is a little higher than that. And my main concern is making sure, I wouldn't necessarily exempt myself right off, but, nobody wants to pay more taxes, but we all want and realize the primary need for emergency services. So, if I'm at the house and I have a cardiac event, then I want the best ambulance possible. And I don't care if it's $98 or $980, it's just, if you can pay it, and let's get the best equipment on board. And let's make sure that if we are going to have an assessment, that it's adequate to cover the budget need of the fire department. I'm federal taxes and, these issues that don't affect us directly oftentimes lose their impact. And, we don't like to pay for items that are part of necessarily the Green New Deal or whatever. But when it comes to community issues, we need to make sure that we have an adequate tax base and that we're drawing from the appropriate sources to fund the fire department and other emergency services. And that was one of the concerns that I wanted to address when I came by here today. So, you know, if I can be of further assistance with this issue, then let me know. But you know, I'm looking at the budget figures here. It's relatively small. I mean, you know, I participate in water districts that have larger budgets than, you know, the fire department here. So, you know, $98 per parcel. What happens at the end of the delegated period, or the period that's on the voting issue? Does that expire?
So correct, so, we went, this was previously introduced to the public and lost by 2 votes. So we put quite a bit of thought and consideration to what should we do different this time. One of the things that we did is we did put a capstone and date on this, with the intent that it gives for an opportunity for the public to come back and say, is the district providing appropriate services for my funding? And with the intent that I believe that solid wildfire, well, obviously you get resolved in 9 years, but it provides kind of a checks and balance for the people to come back and say, yes, would you like to continue this service or not? So that is one that is, we'll come back to the public additional votes in 9 years, decide if we like to continue. If the public decide not to continue, it will still happen, I think, services.
Okay, is there a CPI increase associated?
There is a CPI increase associated with it, there's an annual increase not to exceed CPI.
Okay.
So,
How far above your operating budget does this issue put you?
it's a good question, so currently the budget's roughly 4 million, and this is roughly, this is about a 20% increase to district revenues.
Okay, with rate of inflation, you know, we don't know which administration is going to be in place. But with, I mean, if we have a 10% rate of inflation, is this going to be adequate over the period of the bond issue to cover your operating costs, considering the fact which you mentioned, 400% increase in insurance cost? And I don't know what portion of your budget is property related and what portion of your operating budget is workers' comp related and what portion is liability. But things are going to go up, and they may go up at a greater.
So, I guess I'd start with one statement. Please don't want to keep it together. When you mentioned, is this adequate tax to meet the services? And I would argue that anytime you look at this, you're looking at it from both sides. Is this reasonable not to put a dent in the problem? Is this something that covers it there? Let's say my personal insurance, that was $8,000. I know it's not a lot, so I'd be able to spend $200 to get a lot of my costs down. Right?
Yeah.
So this number comes to a point that we can start to have some impacts on kind of our operating risks. And the most influential one is going to where is wildfire. The district initially started as a structured department, to be this, but a lot of times people consider us similar to places such as Tahoe, or I think it's a good comparison in some ways. The one that makes this place incredibly, 4 square miles of very complicated property surrounded by forests. And what that means is you don't have a mutual neighbors. You're up in Tahoe, you have a fire in the Big Valley, the Little Squaw Valley, got truck coming down in about 30 minutes, you have no Tahoe coming down. So we are in a unique position here, to where we have to take mitigation on the prevention side. We also have a STEM program to be able to respond. So what that number was is some capacity for the district to be able to provide services. There is a CPI increase in there, which will allow us to keep up with inflation. And the way we balance that is that that's very uncomfortable for a lot of people who get concerned about inflation, like you mentioned, at 8%. The way we try to balance that is We wanted to create a budget that we thought would reasonably be, we didn't want to do ask for money, and like, well, we actually couldn't meet it because of inflation. We counted out with the fact that in 9 years, we have to go back to the public and see what we provide this year. So in theory, we should be able to keep up inflation with inflation. We spoke on it a little bit, but one of the interesting things about a fire district is we are 95% of our revenue comes from property tax. There are pros and cons to that. Very opposite of the town. The town is actually about 70% funded by TOT. Always been well. With property tax, especially with Prop 13, you can see the fairly steady revenue, which is great. Places you get in trouble are when there's inflation, because your revenues don't move up with the cost of inflation, as we saw in the last year or so. But one of the things that we discussed at a couple of the last board meetings is, yes, fire engines, it used to cost us $200,000, now it costs us $400,000. There's a little bit of a, that's just the reality of it. We believe that this amount, is adequate to start dealing with primarily the wildfire issue. But because of the fact that you're a all risk department, we have said, medical, car accident, also destroying a lot, all those other service areas benefit from us as well. But for the most part, we dedicate to the bottom line.
Okay.
More about that. I think all of us agree that, we would probably totally support going to $200, but we also, we've lost two very close about in the past. And so there's a really, the political reality, a lot of people pay taxes, and pay a lot of taxes, and they're sensitive to,
Let me just make one closing statement. I think one way, a good way to market this may be a reduction in your insurance cost as, a privately insured residence. You don't want to end up on California Fair Plan. You don't want your insurance rate doubling. I mean, this is what we're all exposed to if we live on the wildland urban interface. Okay. My time's up. Sorry.
Chris, you made some earlier comments, and I might, I'm Brian's like, Brian, made some earlier comments, I'm glad that you were there, because you brought up the information that everybody can share. Page 11 of this overall fiscal year 24-25 preliminary budget, if you look at other revenues, those are pretty much all variable, right? So we don't know if we're going to have those revenues or not. So that is an argument for this tax, it's $98. And I think I voiced at one point, I may be ahead of somebody who's just outside the low income area. I didn't know it was just poor. So the argument is not itself, but I wouldn't do that. I actually for the percentage tax. The difficulty there is people understand percentage tax, what it's going to mean for them necessarily. So that's why the $98 was settled on by the consultant group, and we'll agree to that moving forward. But because of these variable expenses, and then if you look at the total budget, total, and the net, you've got $1,491 for your, on the other side of the coin. So, to me, it's a very obvious thing, it's a necessary thing, but like you said, social responsibility. Not all taxes do I support, but those that I can clear that community at large is what I support.
And I think Chief Meyer, we can back up to the Steve's question. I think that's really important for people to understand how our department is structured with, our handful of full-time staff, and then, our part-time volunteer responders. I think that's helpful for people to understand why it's structured the way it is.
TOT and part of the structure, it goes separately. Most of you are probably aware this is an incredibly unique area in some ways. The town is the highest TOT as a percentage of the budget in the nation last year. So 1 year ago, this was possible. What's got ahead of us, but we're right up. The way that they're structured, they benefit significantly from tourism and to a certain extent, everything, right, as our economic provider. Unfortunately, we don't have flexibility in changing some of how these structures exist. So as a special fire district, there's some unique advantages to why we exist in the district that are beneficial to this community, we cannot receive a portion of that too. As we alluded to, generally when districts are pulled down, is a process where it's LAFCOs get together to work out how that can be worked out. Essentially, where you are in town, district receives between 6 and 7% of the taxes that individuals pay on their taxes, plus the special assessments that school districts also have, additional assessments that they have similar to that. So, again, the town is a beneficiary of tourism. The impact it has on the district, when I started the district 25 years ago, we were running about 240 calls. This last winter, we had the winter emergency grant 13. This was always primarily a volunteer fire department. And the reality is, even today, you look around, it actually still is a part-time volunteer department. When you look at the mission of a fire district, at any given point in time, we have to put 12 to 14 people on the fire service. That makes for a lousy business model because who wants to have only costs of 12 to 14 people, as traditionally done in most places you do it with 3 battalions. So if you look at that, if I have to hire full-time employees, let's say I'm below and I'm have 12 of them, I even have to have 36 just for covering and I still have to bill overtime. Whether by design or pure luck, this district is kind of a leaky cow. It's not unique across the state. There's a ton of people, but it's a combination of departments that still have a robust volunteer workforce. But this district has 4 full-time chiefs, technically 3.5, for instance, 6 employees, who also on half-time. Last year we had 2 full-time firefighters, we're back into 4 full-time firefighters. We had last year's budget that we're gonna have to make up for. And the rest of our firefighters are seasonal, part-time, and volunteer. That is how this district is efficiently here. That model is not going away. We're always going to be dependent on those people in our community here to provide services. So, that's a little piece I think is fundamental to understanding some of the challenges that this district has, as opposed to places that look similar, such as Trump or the Tahoe, yes, it is. Again, on the TOT, we looked into any possible way that we could do this, but it's essentially something get the public funds. And we receive funds for our mission. We have certain ways we have to keep those funds and we correct outside the speak on it. But essentially, town funds are town funds, district funds are district funds, school funds are school funds. So we can't say, hey, I'm not a huge fan of schools, I happen to have 3 kids that go there. I want some of that money, but those become voter choices essentially. At some point, it is difficult running a district. We have a heavier, lift because we have 2/3 with our ballot measure. The town office has the general obligation, which is 50%. But ultimately, if you believe that this is the right thing, this is the mechanism that we have to use by the power of this code to move forward with this thing. Their statement.
Yeah.
Ryan mentioned one other thing about homeowners insurance. And I can tell you folks, real life experience, that homes in Mammoth, were not part of the large non-renewal that State Farm and other companies took part in. And also, until the whole state was shut down, we were still writing in that place. And in part, in great part, that's because we have fire District 1, and we have that other building, Fire Station 1, and we have Fire Station 2. Because having that robust volunteer and full-time these buildings in urban org, that is looked very favorably upon, as opposed to people in Crowley and people in Small Meadows, and people in Mount Valley, and people in Drake, who all have conversations with all day long about how the 120 or 100% increase versus the 60 to 20% increase in race. So, supporting the robust fire district is involved. Yeah,
Hi, Michael Payne. Yeah, I wanted to come up and speak personally instead of for the association, because this is my personal opinion. And it was an ask of the last administration. I think it's something that I've seen in listening to people's comments, and that is, this is a tax for local services. I think if people understood how we get our revenue, because even last time, people are like, why not TOT? Why not TOT? And not only that, I think explaining, I think we're doing a good job of trying to explain that, the hazards that we're trying to mitigate with this, but not as open about, say, the cost, right? So we're looking to solve problem X and Y. To solve problem X and Y, it's going to cost Z, and this tax measure is going to raise this amount. And I think it's something that not a lot of district towns or entities do with taxes, right? Taxes are always that little bit of a fog. And, you pay them and you kind of hope you're getting the services that you want, but you don't really know. It's in politics, you hear a lot of arguments about it. And so I think being very transparent and very open, and I personally feel that if we had done this the last time we flew it, that it would have passed by those 20 votes. So it's something that I asked of the board and, the staff to, in our wording, to really kind of try to push that and less on the fear tactics.
I like what you said, respond to that, Madam Chairman. I think that the important thing about this, it was not a general fund tax. It's specifically these wildlife or interface services, response times, changing outcome, the cardiac event, whatever it is, to make sure that we're there for that. Versus sort of a general fund increase, which is sort of, then you get allocated where it goes. And I think that's what, for me, is most impactful. If I keep something, I keep something on the fund, because this expect to sell resident. The flip side of that is that no one's coming. Right? So, God forbid, we have a commitment coinciding with minor camping, and we're samples for some of the river plays. We need to make sure that we don't suspend anything that we can. And that for me is the emotion. Because I do think that some way town doesn't understand. Outside of 6 or 7 full-time employees, people have to like to show up.
Yeah. Well,
It's not a Hollywood, ring the bell and the truck shows up and 50 people get off.
yeah. Oh no, I mean, you're preaching to the choir on this for me, right? Like I see and know. And I guess that's what I look at, is really trying to get that message out to the community, because, I'm for this, but I'm also inside, right? I get to see the inner workings. And so that's where I think a lot of people don't. We have 3 people from the public here. Probably no one watches any videos or anything of this. So it's how then could we focus on getting that message out instead of some of the messages that I've seen arrive in my mailbox trying to use fear, really trying to say, hey, this is for wildland, this is for, propane. These are 2 very big, important issues. It's going to cost X. This will bring in Y to cover that, right? And I think if you use that transparency, people will realize, hey, this is for the greater good for me and my community, and they will respond positively to that.
I agree 100%. I mean, you make great points. That was my comment before I was on this board. And I wasn't on this board at the prior vote. And it wasn't until I was asked by Claire people to resurrect the fire city council that we were online. And I did, but I said, what are we going to do? First of all, I don't want to do anything without an agenda, and we end up getting $1 million grant for mitigation. in the base case scenario, but that's when I first realized as a citizen, that there's an apartment in a district. And that's the message, I think, what you're saying is that message needs to be explained at large.
Yes.
I agree, 100%. And, so I love my employees, as was once told to me by a president of the district, when I brought forward a problem. He said, great, come up with 3 solutions to it before you come in here, because that was my, how do we get that message out to the public at large?
Yeah.
You don't listen to the meetings, you don't, maybe not. So a public forum would be great, we had public forums at the Welcome Center before about, base station product and mitigation. I don't know how that would work, or how that can work, but that's what we're trying to do. That's why I have a question about
Well,
how much I can say.
I think it's also right, if you ran a business and an employee came up to you and said, I have this really great idea, and they tell you the idea and you're like, okay, but like, how much is this projected to bring in versus how much is this projected to cost, right? Those are big numbers if you're running a business that you want to know. And I think where a lot of people kind of get a little weary with taxes is they don't necessarily know where that money is going towards. Now, they know because we've said, hey, this is going towards, wildland, these specific things. But, if you also threw the numbers out there, right? We've thrown out the number of what we're projected to raise on this, but have we thrown out what the projected cost is? Like, the first time I've heard that was in this meeting. And so I think, this is information that the public at large, if they heard it, it would make it more likely for this measure to pass.
First of all, thank you for your consideration. You're right. And it's very difficult when we try and get public on these. I can certainly give you kind of a line item what I perceive. I think we can try to forecast that actually our budget, our final budget is going to be a reflection of where the review district currently has homes. Two big ones, which is no surprise to our wildland program, as you're aware. So I came before the board at the beginning of this year. Let me go step further. I became fire chief. I had significant concerns about what we were able to provide for that service level. So we set up a wildland program with retired chief folks coming in to help us stand that up. The problem is that was almost a new service. We've always had some fire, but the reality is we've never had a true wildland program as we are looking to build today. But that concern got more stressed when our federal partners removed their engines from Mammoth Lakes, and as you're aware, we don't have an engine in Rock Creek anymore. We don't have an engine like we have had in a long time. So the only federal engine that's here on a regular basis is Preston. Now they do have a couple of coverages that come through. There's the gift Colorado that's currently here, but a lot of that just depends on the budget. You can absolutely say, that's a federal problem. The reality is we need to solve our own problems, and I don't see the Fed solves, and I know you understand this.
Yeah.
And so the two areas that I'm concerned about with this services are wildland, and then because we've been trying to provide services, what we've done is we've held off on our capital expenditure. It's really easy for the public to miss this because you look at this station, Chief Freeball always used to say, this station is a blessing and a curse. It was built under Chief Ritter's savings when the department we had 4 employees and it had all volunteers. Most of our purchases were actually due to the fact that under Chief Ritter, we had a very fiscally tight budget. So even our ladder truck, those are reflections of that past history. At this point, because we've had to allocate people to staff to run those calls to 2 in the morning, that is drunk and not going to do. The reality is that's taken, we still have a much smaller proportion of our staff costs in relation to like I say, the county or something, but we've been taking that out of our capital expenditure. As an example, something I think we really need to Brian, our ambulance in the South State, which was very concerned that we had a mechanical failure of one of our ambulances. Fortunately, we were able to transfer to the county ambulance, take that patient in, and the county provided us with an ambulance for 2.5 weeks while we had parts. You go downstairs, people from LA County came up during the federal disaster. They were literally taking pictures of our ambulance, because it's a nice, relic. So, as far as where is this funding gonna go, I can get into a little bit of the detail. I can go too deep, because I think it can strain ways we honestly would not, but I foresee that for the wildland program, we have to provide at least 2 crew buses who, based on kind of what I've seen up in Tahoe, most likely have them in year-round positions, and a very robust wildland seasonal program. It is doing a couple of things. It's really working on fuels mitigations. It starts doing kind of home assessments and inspections within the community. They're also building up that response capacity. That's what we are. We'll send them out, but those costs get reimbursed. And if you have a good size capabilities to deal with the groundwater. So those items alone will make up 90% of what I see. So could there maybe be a, non-safety administrative person? Maybe, because there's so much cheaper than public safety employees. But overall, I see small portions of full-time staff, robust seasonal part-time staff, and all the equipment that goes to that. Just as you're aware, White Bark is working very hard on the donut project. One of the things that they have up in Tahoe is equipment where instead of us chipping like we do, basically bring it up with a boom truck, pick it up, and they take it to the facility. So all these pieces have to fall together to create that safety in that aspect. I've got a pretty concrete idea of what that looks like. I also think it's important that as a mission and that it's about public safety. At some point, if we really need that other administrative person, we want to have a person that way. You told me this is exactly 16 people ultimately, and that's the general guidelines. I think you're right. You have to do a better job on that.
Yeah, and as I said, I don't think it needs to go into that far weeds or details. But I think because, and I can speak for this from people who have come up to me and they know I'm on the fire department and they're like, what exactly is this going for? How much is this? Like, well, how much does that cost? Like, what, these are questions that people have. And I think it's something with the last time we did it, it was something that I had asked the previous administration, and I don't think we did a good job of communicating that. And I think that's why we failed by so few votes. And that's why I'm here asking that this time around, could you please kind of focus on that and be a little more transparent? I don't think we need to get too into the weeds, but if people knew that we're losing federal resources, so we're trying to now augment those resources here to protect the town, right? And, there's other things involved too, but all these things that we're looking to do for public safety are going to cost about $1 million. And this tax is going to bring in, 918, and we're going to cover the rest out of our general fund, right? Like, okay. Well, thank you.
Maybe I can work with the association, bring something to the board, and then by the next meeting,
I agree. I think that's a good point that Michael brings up, because there's that analytical, clearly, from my hearing you say, visual, it's great. And so, but there are a lot of people who are drivers and business and people who want my answer. And then there are some people who just need to hear, like, how is this going to benefit the overall? And I think it might move us to have an answer to all of that. Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment in the board? Okay. Online, we have Kendall, anybody there? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I think if anybody has public comment, please raise your hand.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. The attendance and interest in this is important. What was this? We talked about that on the business. Adoption of resolutions,
So this is the item we're currently discussing, obviously that opportunity for the public to get input. At this point, this is the resolution ordinance as I believe meets the intent of the board, as well as the blue light to see it. They all essentially reflect that question, so they can work with reading that out. With the questions on that, a little bit. Or on the top of, but the intent of the ordinance is to reduce the risk of wildfires, maintain and improve rapid response times for 911 emergency services, protect, retain, and train qualified firefighters, but the best case programs to improve wildfire protection, so prevention. Show that police fire protection is good limits limiting $90 per parcel for 9 years be adopted. Buying approximately $925,000 annually, local control funding, adoption yearly increase not to exceed CPI, with senior and low income organization, independent oversight, annual audits, and all risk and enrollment.
I would move that the board doesn't be to talk about lots of discussion, all the comments, or don't add better clarification as opposed to abject. In addition, we might have discussion, same time. I don't think that dedicated specific and not just a general fund. When we do this, fire information next week is looking at, I'm just going to basically, so I want to say, how do we do all that? This is what I'm saying.
I'll second the motion. And just your comment as well, a little bit of the process too, you know, we really get into the information gathering phase. You know, prior to start the series in the day today, and that week that, I think that everything in terms of, explaining this to the public are very welcome and very easily incorporated into our health.
Second, any discussion? Other than continued education, for the overall elements of question. There's one thing in here that says to agree the higher standing which we put in the fire station to. I look at this as a mandate. It isn't going to include what that is. And to say, well, it is something, it's not adequate, it's not what you need. And I just, in good conscience, I think we look at, well, the thing for us is already been, we've got other measures on there that are asking to absolutely well. My rebuttal to that is mandate, which I don't think does sound weak. So that's good. But you know, you look down the line, it's going to come whatever at that point, it isn't going to be okay, we use that money and now we're in good shape.
So, Ken, let me just put out there, I showed down here is very specifically, my intent, if you all choose to have me still here. One of the things I want to pass the problems to the next group, and, you know, we've always very considerate about it as well. So my intent is to be here in 9 years, to explain to the public the importance of this. So we will not solve this problem. I have no illusions about that. I also agree with you. I would love for staffing. I would love to do more. This, I believe, is a good balance of what we can achieve and actually have meaningful impacts on the safety community. You know, that is why this is the lowest.
I can't see. Perfect. Better. I agree with you, right, it's not, it's everything, it's not gonna give us the Cadillac, it's not gonna allow us to staff, station two, do the same thing here, you know, station one. But, it's a step forward. And frankly, my comment says, better than where we are, better than we are.
And sometimes step forwards like this can lead to the amplification of those. Because it does provide some good, you look back and say, what good did it provide over the last 1, 2, and 5, 10 years? Yes, this is a good provider. Then that in itself is a step forward. And then you can improve that we need. Most funding for that. So it makes sense.
It makes sense, but at the same time, we have a clear PDX, which is dollars. And we did $4 million on this department and provide all the services that are supposed to be done against that and station with and really somewhat. But we're putting money aside, we're ready to replacement. We're paying, we go to the station for all that money comes out of our budget for fuel and equipment.
And all the support services, like there's quite a bit that gets done here, just to take care of all the support services, we have that legal, we have that this, it is difficult, but I concur.
If, I'll close with this. You can only slip on the record this time. I mean, unless you've got great work, this allows us to select this track and this time. And we can take the next one, moving forward. Yeah, I was at the Blonsky buys and things yesterday for the office in Baldwin. And they have that big screen now, and I have to watch it, so some guys do it. Can't quite get through it without space. But what it brings my attention to is that 1.5% TOT tax that they have at the bottom of every grocery bill. And if I add up, after that, I think they're going to see, I do, add up how much I pay in groceries and how much goes to the 1.5%, but I have no idea what it does. I mean, in whole, you know, I can take down that part, but this specifically, as John said, it's dedicated, for that purpose alone.
And to a point, I can miss out. But the problem is, and I think the only solution is that the city or the township has to take over the parking. At some point, it's going to come to that, because on what we get in the way of monies and what are projected fees are going to be as far as equipment and manpower for that. We are going to be able to do for it. And I'm big, and you go to the town, we say, we can't provide services that we need to provide. You need to have a budget. There has to be some way that we can tap into those DOT funds, or you're gonna have to take over the department. And until that point, we just won't put aside monies for replacement costs and that sort of thing, and we'll spend it on manpower, so that when somebody calls in and they've got a structure fire, we don't send out 2 guys or 3 guys and 1 piece of equipment. Initial response is going to say, this happened, and we are going to at some point at that day where we have an event and have a lightning strike at the same time. We're going to lose half the town. And like that happens, you know, they're going to come back and say, so do you do this with something?
While we're having that discussion with the town, not willing to sacrifice the safety, I'd say, although because it's not perfect, that to use my dragon metaphor, that's been extracted. If this was this track and we pushed it down the road this far, the other track is like, is get the town involved, TOT or something.
And we had to, and I don't disagree with you, that's the next dragon. That dragon might be here around two right now. It's gonna be tomorrow if we can tell. Right.
And I think in Father, I commend with respect for your experience, your knowledge, and I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of, you know, staffing patients too. Just a couple things. One, I mean, it's my understanding that if we were to big change for the COP funded model, essentially the current structure of the department gets liberated, right? Because then all our firefighters are on staff. It's very expensive to have municipal staff. So, you know, our current structure, we have very fine people who, you know, come from their other jobs to respond to incidents. That goes away. And so that's, you know, so that's a need at the counter to the COP discussion. And I certainly understand, I think it's super valid. And it's a conversation that we had with LDS this year, you know, during the winter emergency in terms of, you know, the tremendous costs. Because they do the same thing. They were like, well, you have, you know, all the tourism and it impacts you and why you got funding it. And then we also had conversations about what we, you know, when we're Cal Fire. And again, it's just, you know, the blow up or the same structure, it would be unbelievably expensive. And so for me, I think, you know, I want to see this go forward because I'm not willing to give up, you know, the wildland program, which if we don't move forward in this, then there's no investigation to ever. So that's really kind of where I settle on it, but I absolutely hear and over budget.
Well, you know, I'm not happy with these pushes, the administration and the volunteers that we have. I mean, it's just a great fire department. I came to a great fire department. How many of you guys look at your training, your expertise, everything? You guys are great, and as volunteers, you do this because you felt an obligation to the community to do it. And that's a whole lot different than the department. That was like, here, you want to do a day to go out and do what's leading to volunteers. So, no, I think it's a great department. I just hate to see the fact that so much pressures for money. There is so much money to take care of what you actually need here in order to really provide assistance actually. So I understand this burden and it just isn't going to solve the problems and we're going to be back walking the town and telling them we need more money. You know, and if the county takes it over, and this is this surgery, but if they take it over, they've got funding, they've got funds that they can provide these. I don't know if they would, but it would be a different part than what you see now. And as far as people that are attracted to the fire service, I've been all over the country in different fire departments and stations. They're all the same. They're dedicated. They really have community about. So I wouldn't be concerned about having risk of people coming in. It's a staff and fire department. Okay, but this is over. Please back. I don't think it should. I think that on the one hand, I would like, I support the development. If you want to have a discussion with the town and put our hands, you know, our lives and town staff, I said that for purpose. Yeah, so they can have an discussion. But I think that they're not going to get this. This prevents us from doing any of the things that. Yeah, we could do that after. I think you answered your own concern. This may not do it for us, but it may give us an added extent. Well, and that doesn't preclude us from having future discussions. And I think to your point, if it's not enough, and it may not be enough, we're not going to lose any standing
or any grounds down, you know, say, hey, you more. So. I want to know that.
And if I could just comment on that, you know, I guess what I would say is careful where you tread in a sense that might not be significant to your loss department head. Or from our past, caution with one of the commissioners, that because there'll be significant implications. A lot of them, you know, this district has not district. Anyway, type of organization, type of parameters, this district has very effective services, at a house, absolutely that town couldn't fit at that level. My concern is if we went down that balance again. I have to look, I remember 12 and 14 people that were on a county structure, you look at something like Weston, they're supposed to be 28 to 32 people on fire, so, there is no step from point A to point B to where the town would be going to get us to that level. My concern is frankly with the part-time and volunteer staff, it would actually have been more expensive and lower service model than we're today. So I wish I had the funding, I wish I had the flexibility that the department has. I believe this is our burden to bear as. It is hard.
So we got, kind of get part of the motion on the table. About a discussion around we got part of town, and, you know, right with TOT and all that's is a separate discussion. And so I'd like to just bring us back to that motion. And either it's not approved or is approved, then we have all discussion on future funding and needs through 2030 and all that stuff. And I should have said, yeah, so what I did, I will, but I that's that. Or a number of it.
I would agree with you to move on from that. I just want to close myself by thanking the folks that are here. You mentioned you want to do stuff with passion. So it takes passion. If you're here on a Thursday night, and I haven't been to many places, but I'd like to or should have, to give credence to the folks that have a passion for what they're doing and describing here. They're not pure mercenaries working for their pension, or their, you know, a step up the ladder, if you will, in their career. They're here with this passion. Right? That's, you know, one of those. We get that. Okay. Any other comments? So we look for a second. We have a second. We have this. Okay. You propose. Correct. Second. Okay. Yes. Yes. Mr. Curry, where do you want to be? Yes. Mr. Jazz?
Yes.
Mr. Moore? Yes. I vote here. Okay. Chief Fox was having a question.
So, Chief Brooks actually has a brief, I think, very information presentation on our wildland program. We gave start around 0 last year, and this is a snapshot of where we are today. We made some pretty big progress. So we just share a couple slides as far as. What's that? Technical difficulty. Oh, fire staff, so I'll store on the staff stuff.
Trust us, we're much better at fire.
Also very easy. Yeah, and, so we thought we could use the quick refresher, we're calling this the refresher one, it really lost on fire. That's, you know, this is just one thing from that. So we want to kind of cover some of the things we've done so far this year. We talked about in the past, as far as trainings and projects, those affect this year. We've already been on a number of incidents, and there's a number of benefits for not only the fuels crew and the other folks that go along on these incident responses, but it gives our folks the need experience that we need to bring back here in order to move the department forward in that bottom line in this portion. So far this year, we've been on, we started with the exterior farm, which we sent out as our, where we have OES state-owned rig, with all of our fuels folks on it, that went out to the end. And then we sent our bartender out to the Paisano fire, which was backing in that, about 120. And then we also sent a water tender out to the Basin fire, which was in Butte County. And then we sent 2 engines out in a task force with other members of other fire departments throughout the county to what was supposed to be one fire, but turned into a kind of a little campaign of fires. So they ended up on the Thompson fire, which was originally in Butte County, and then they were reassigned before they left that fire to the French fire, and then were reassigned from that fire to the Lake fire, which is in San Barbara County. All together, with all the different crews, the equipment, we had 36 days on incident. Those 36 days are 24-hour days for our crews. Sometimes they get to sleep in that 24-hour period, sometimes they don't. A number of their assignments were 24-hour assignments that they just work through. And then if they get lucky, they might get put in a hotel or they might sleep in the transport. So we got a lot of experience. We had both bartenders out and our OES state rig was out and our 2 Type 3s and the 32 and 34 round. So we got a lot of experience. The other piece that's really important to us is, as the chief has mentioned, we're trying to build up our overhead. And not only are we short on overhead, the state is starving for overhead positions. Mike McCarthy and Jeff Such are both working on the strategy task force leader calls. And so we did do what we call a pre-position, which was just a local county pre-position, and that was for the heat and the weather, the lightning strikes. It was only a 2-day assignment. Paid for by the state. Mike was able to work on his training position and strategy task force, and Jeff was out for 17 days, working with Rick Alder from Handle Valley Fire on his strategy calls. Just in a short period, it's not really fire season, we got quite a bit of time on fires and quite a bit of experience in our folks. Chief, first you mentioned the reimbursement process. Sure, so for everything except for what we call the green engine, which is the state-owned engine, we are responding, it's in a mutual aid aspect, but these are billable in the sense that we're reimbursed for the personnel that we supply,
And if it's one of our red engines, we are reimbursed for the equipment too. The equipment's paid for a max of 16 hours in a day. Personnel are paid from the second they leave here to the second they return. So it's called portal to portal. So it could be quite a few hours of time. It definitely covers the cost of the boats. It's supposed to help us cover any backfill we need to do, such as Gilbert, one of our captains, one of our full-time captains is out. We do have to backfill his particular position, but the idea is that I think helps pay for that. The state engine, we can't bill for the equipment because it's not ours. But we do get reimbursed for the personnel we put on that engine. Projects for the People's Group, and maybe also something to mention is, I kind of said this really wasn't just about the People's Group. We're able to get folks out that were not part of the People's Group on those incidents also. People's Group makes the majority, because that was part of their assignment, but we also get into many folks who we can, from part-time and full-time staff working through that. For projects, we've been pretty busy this year. We've been helping Forest Service again in the early part of the season with the prescribed burning. The one we did this year was up near June Lake. They're kind of burning all the way from June Lake all the way down as we go. Camp High Sierra went in and helped them out. They were doing a big cleanup in there. We went in and shipped what they had filed for us. So kind of no different than going through personal parcels and taking care of that. Valentine, we still have many years of work out there. And this beginning part was continuation of piles that we had built from the year before. We have about 150 left. We were only able to burn because we had great snow, but there was no one over the past. We didn't have protection. Probably burned about 25 piles at 150. Joaquin, that's actually our parcel. We've been working on that for the last couple of years. We're using that as a demonstration parcel. What do we want the parcels to look like in town? So we've been working on that one as one of our projects. We'll come back to that one. The Lakes Basin was a new one. We talked about that, I think, in the last meeting. It's about 10 acres. We've been up to the Lakes Basin. We've seen it. We dropped over 100 trees along the town trails and staff. We've been taking thousands of pounds of ground fuel out there for shipping, and then actually hauling all the trees out from the drop. We still have a tremendous amount of work out there. We'll continue that as they go back project. In fact, they're up there today. Hope we get Cal Fire in there to help us haul out. And then the town is kind of working out with the tribe and Bishop to donate that wood for them for the fire. Very easy. And then of course we're still continuing shipping with over 500 last year. We're averaging this year much less, but in general we're doing about 7 to 10 parcels a week for shipping. So we'll continue to move forward on that. We are getting a lot more phone calls and interest into the division as far as people wanting to know about, hey, I've got dead trees on my property. How do I deal with those? Can you come and do an inspection and tell me what I need? So people are starting to pick up and be more proactive about things. So I think a lot of the advertising is happening not only from us on the events that we've done throughout the year, but also what White Park does, the Fire City Council, but the fire advisory groups have been doing, and we're hearing more and more that a lot of the fire advisory groups are starting to be developed in other parts of the county. The county emergency management division on their side started to push these. We have some starting here too. Those are helping because we're also getting phone calls from those folks that are starting to create those little blocks, asking what our involvement is in that and how we can help. And of course, we're all whatever assistance we can in the arts. So it is moving along. We have a free project. We worked on that last year. That was a big project for White Park. We've been going back in. There's a lot of blowdown in there. There's still a lot of dead standing in there. And there's also a kind of a new disease in there in the aspens. It's called rust. And so we've gone at the ask of White Park. We're going back in there and dropping those aspens with rust. for blocking up and removing ones that are on the ground, and then they're also cleaning the trail. And that's all. We've really been pushing trains since the start of the fuels through. And the great thing is the training that we're giving to them, which is really required of them, is being spread across all of our folks at soccer and everybody in the department, and we're getting quite a few folks from other surrounding departments for a lot of these training classes. And for like our KH 330 with the striking meter class, we put folks from the so it travels all the way up here, and that makes sense if you have choices going to Riverside for a lot of family. So, we get about 140 hours of training so far this year. And that's quite good. So, like I said, part of it is our overhead. The other part is to get our folks to the next step within NWCG, which is the national training categories for wildlife. So we want to keep moving our folks forward from it's a little backwards, and then CP firefighter 2, firefighter 1, and we have engine loss training that we're working on right now, so we can get our crews to the proper supervision. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Do you have any idea, whether we're getting more, traction in the second one, whether it be, or, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say so. I'm getting phone calls for people who ask me to not walk the property, and the last couple I've done have been second homeowners. You know, one of the folks I talked to is a family, they inherited his cabin, and they want to keep it in the family forever. So they're really anxious about what can we do here. So I say, yes, they're small, but yes.
Are we staffed adequately for that? I would also say, they work with my house.
Absolutely, yeah. Not only, so we have, you know, one of our new employees, which is Shane. We're slowly getting trained in that, but also Jason Compton, which works for Mike. We take him out to, he's done some, all our folks have done these types of inspections over the years, then we kind of stopped activity and take a new direction. And what we're trying to get to is we're still trying to get a state certified class for all of our folks, so that they can actually go in and say, look, we're basing this on the state standards and certified inspectors to be able to do this. So, but yes, Shane or myself take all the phone calls and schedule this through the weekend. And then, of course, we're also doing real estate inspections.
And on the walking parcel, obviously that's the account. Is there, where you would say, ready and perfect, in terms of its status?
Was,
Right.
until the construction guys next door buy all their stuff on the
Got it.
but yes, it's, we dropped quite a few trees in there. First when we dropped stuff, it was a hazard for dead trees. Now we've kind of gone and opened some of it up into the amount that we want.
I was just like,
Yeah, you've done a good job of cleaning the ground itself. So it's a very good example of a part that we'd like to see. And also, part of our code says that you do annual maintenance. So we are doing the same thing. We go back every year and do annual maintenance.
are you classes open to anybody?
Yes. So we fly, for most of the classes, the basic ones we're doing, we fly them, just vision will fly those to all the departments in Albania and Mono. The AH 330 was put on by Cal OES, so they flew that on their site, and so you had to sign up for a fire console with that one.
Thank you. Thank you very much. TRS system implementation. Touch.
So the Chris, trunk set has been installed back a few years ago. They've got very nice installed, they've got their, just the rest of their hardware components installed, and just be ready to use it up very long. It's in semi-functional state right now, which doesn't have panel, so the next connection you have there is that little.
standard for the installed hours, but also similar to the feedback, maybe we should make that's things for me to install other things. Very much time here. Microwaves here, here, well, it also has a mechanism regulating work. Needs to sure. That basically will, microwave, so that like our energy down, still works. Feasible? Sure. Our station battery backup.
Chief Water Snow Person that's constantly being updated on this project. These are both grant funded projects, station two, been up and running for a while, like Chief Brooks, actually building up a little better. But, the battery that is the backup system for station one is up. Currently, the providers are here working on making sure that it's interfacing properly, so the power comes down, it comes in appropriately, it goes out the generator with that, so this is there, so, they just started working on powering that, we're still working on the other thing, so hopefully within about a month, it'll be battery back on the system. The next thing is, again, so grant funded, there's also an opportunity where we can draw down on these batteries during high costs, and they replenish at lower costs, so it should bring our budget of the bill completely down.
Just priority reports. Board member comments. Yeah. Association comments, fine. I have one comment. Oh, believe it or not. Sorry, everybody. And this is Jeff, and for the board as a whole, if you follow social media, this subject came up on social media as somewhat of a tit for tat back and forth. And one of the prior commissioners was responding, I would not say this or technically, they don't argue social media, so she's the way. But that might be a option for all of us. Stick with that. As much as educating people, I don't know if that's the for education. That's all I'm saying. Association. No. I see nothing. Sure.
That social media, they'll tell you. Picnic Sunday, they'll invite.
That's great.
Free hot dogs and hamburgers for everybody.
Beer.
Beer, not.
No.
Definitely not.
All right, administrative business, so our next meeting is going to be March, and so, how was that, really scheduled? Good. Good. Okay. Good. I think that's it. Remember the public, thank you very much for the comments and the important members. And commenting social media, what they're actually showing up is good, so appreciate that. And I guess just one of the things I was thinking about. Really, first of all, thanks for this parcel tax. It's really about the best thing. For me, that's pretty huge. The 911, cost side, continue to do so. A lot of fire, they, all those things, so, we don't pay a lot of taxes. We don't pay any more. But just one city like this, dedicated to some pain with that, with that,